Plan and Zoning Commission, June 12th meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the secretary please read the roll.
Chairman Aida.
Here.
Commissioner Camillo. Commissioner Claffey.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods.
Here.
Commissioner Batalika. Commissioner Braverman.
Here.
Commissioner Giangrave.
We'll have Commissioner Baberman sit in for Commissioner Camillo. Mr. Planner, approval of the agenda. Is there changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two items to add.
What would you like to add then?
Okay, under petitions for public hearing scheduling, we received an application for a text amendment. This will be petition number 23-19, zoning text amendment for a new section, Transit Village Design District. Newington Town Council applicant, Andrew Brecker, contact. So I recommend putting that under 9B, petitions for public hearing scheduling.
Okay.
And I also just yesterday received an application from Phantom Fireworks. They wanted to do a 4th of July firework display or sales. And I told them I'd try to get on the agenda for tonight because if you didn't take it up until the next meeting in June, they'd have like about a week to sell fireworks. So I recommend we put that on the agenda also under new business, petition 24-19, fireworks tent sale at 3164 Berlin Turnpike. And that application is in the folder when you came
That
in.
would be item F under new
That would
business.
be
Yes, item F, yeah.
Be item 9C then?
Well, 9F,
Oh,
new business.
let me see.
The petition for public hearing would be 11B.
Any questions on the changes to the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have the changes as noted by the planner. Next item, public participation. Anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time, come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Patty Foley, 51 Crown Ridge. Earlier today, last night I happened to be listening to the May 22nd TPZ meeting. Yeah, I need a life. But I found it very interesting, and one of the items, and I sent an email earlier today, which was regarding how to get the information about the POCD out to folks. And there was quite a bit of discussion back and forth and so forth. I had a headache by the time the meeting was over. So I thought that if I can bring to you an opportunity to put together or work with whoever here to put together on something that we can send out every week through NCTV, whether it be on our Channel 14, Channel 16, but also through our Facebook page, or opportunities where we might do a short video, and I mean short, I don't mean like 15 minutes, I mean short, on a particular topic that would get the public to understand that this is what you want to hear from. Because the one thing I don't know is, that's nice to have a public hearing, what am I going to talk about? I don't know. So having some dialogue go out in advance of the meeting may be the opportunity for those of us in the public who are generally interested, may have the opportunity to have a chance to really think about the topics that would be considered in the new plan. So I was told that this will be the 2030 plan, that because we always keep referring to in the past the 2020. So this will be our 2030 plan. Do I understand? Well, anyway, so that's why I'm here, and thank you very much.
Patty, would you mind if I had our consultant get in touch with you through the town planner?
Not at all.
I'll give you your contact, if you could give your contact information to the planner, and then he will have the consultant we have a consultant that's putting together all the media, and he's doing all the legwork for us.
Perfect.
So if you could work with him, I'd really, really appreciate it.
Because we need to get it at a grassroots level to the people out.
We talked about it, but this is, that'd be great.
Yeah, I've already done that, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
So you'll get, she is really the contact person for NPC.
Yes, I was CC'd on that email from you to the.
Yeah, I
board
wrote
earlier
it to
today.
you.
Right, yep, right. And I've already sent it on to Glenn Shalder to get together to talk about taking advantage of NCTV, definitely.
That's what we're here for.
Okay,
We're here to support you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Pat.
Thank you. Have a great night, gentlemen.
Okay.
Let's have a little more of an exciting meeting, okay? Because I'm going to go home and watch you. Bye-bye.
We don't want exciting.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, remarks by commissioners. Any remarks at this time? Any concerns you want to bring up? We have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Zoning enforcement officers report. Andrew?
Good evening, everyone. This month I don't have any new temporary sign applications or renewals since our last meeting. I would like to note that I was out for a week last month for Casio zoning officer training, as well as our blight complaints have really picked up. So please keep that in mind as you're reviewing the May 2019 report. And with that, are there any questions?
Anything to bring up to Mr. Claffey?
29 Clarendon Terrace, kind of, it's on page 6, coincides with what we talked about what's happening on West Hartford Road with that house and using unpaved stone next to it to put cars on. So I'm trying to understand how 29 Clarendon Terrace has unpaved portion of property. I guess we need a better definition of what a vehicle can sit on the side of a house that's right on the property line.
Right.
And I mean, I'm seeing a lot of these, and I brought up the parking before, and it has gone upon some,
I think the regulations state that it has to be a paved area. Is that, am I correct with that?
go right up to the property line, the paved area?
What is the?
Not exactly. If parking in front of the house, it needs to be on the driveway. But the regulations are silent as to whether a car behind the house needs to be on pavement. And I think that's fine, because if you think about it, folks very often will have a car in the backyard that gets way in the back, on the lawn. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, but it's pretty common. And it's not really a violation of the regulations. I mean, we could talk about making it a violation, but I don't know if you really want to make everybody pave their backyard so they can put that truck that they've been working on for the past 20 years, but still isn't roadworthy. Well, they can't have that anyway, because they do have to be roadworthy, but it's,
So somebody can go up, pull up next to their house, park a car on the side of the yard on the grass, and that's okay.
I'm saying there's no regulation against it.
Talking side yard, not rear yard.
Well, the side yard, that's a gray area, whether you,
I mean,
it's a
and I
gray
guess
area.
my question is also setbacks. If you have a setback on a house, we don't have a setback on a driveway.
Well, we do for a driveway. Driveways have to be 5 feet from the property line.
But you're okay with using the side of the house as partial of the driveway? Is that where this stuff is starting to go to?
Right.
I want to make sure you guys, or we're all understanding that right.
Right, and the regulation is gray. And in fact, Andrew and I talked about proposing an amendment to clarify that, which we'll bring to you at the next meeting. It's been interpreted by previous CEOs a certain way,
Okay.
but that's problematic, the way it's been interpreted in the past. And we can go into more detail when we present that amendment to you folks at the next meeting.
Anything else, Anthony? Anyone else?
I guess on all these illegal signs that are popping up, I mean, there's a bunch. None
Yeah.
of them have come back in the last 2 weeks. I mean, some of these dates are last week. To
Well,
not to like, let's say, just take Wendy's. That was, what's today, the 13th or the 12th? That was violation observed on the 28th. Like, did we send a notice out, okay, or what?
no, I took the approach that I've been instructed by the TPZ to do, which was a face-to-face with the manager. They took the signs down right there, and they were compliant, and they haven't put them back up, to my knowledge.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, because some there's notices, but no new I guess what I'm getting at is no new, out of all these, has anyone come in? I guess you already answered this earlier today, there's no new permit signs.
Correct, yes. I've had a couple people inquire about it. It seems like they might be on the cusp of about to apply, but no new ones.
These are,
If you see illegal H-frame sign violations in the report, it's typically where I go out and remove the sign from the right-of-way. The wind waivers at Wendy's, I didn't do that. It was on their property, but if it's in the town right-of-way, I will remove it.
and then, let me see. 191 Brookside Road, is that a residential property or commercial?
It's residential. The out-of-state plates was not a violation, but the heavy equipment was. It's been removed, and they are now compliant. They actually moved it fairly quickly. I think it was within 2 or 3 days.
Can't have a dozer in your yard?
Not in the front yard.
And I guess my other 44 Dean Drive, we're almost going in 7 months on, or 6.5 months.
Yeah, it's been a tough one. They were in contact with me a lot, and you could see April 30th, they gave me an update that they had moved everything out of the storage unit and were just waiting for it to be picked up. Since then, I've reached out to them multiple times, and I haven't heard back from them. So it's gone on long enough to the point where on June 5th, I sent a citation. They have 10 days to appeal that from the date they received the notice.
The Fen Road, the parcel on Fen Road, they never came back with a site plan. I'm talking
The 135,
the Trush Company.
right, yes, they've,
What's going on with that
okay, they've actually hired Weston Sampson to prepare the actual site plan, and we met with their engineer last week. We explained what we need.
Are they operating out of there?
They are. They're going to come in with a site plan that shows the majority of their parking lot gravel. The regulations don't prohibit gravel. Gravel technically can be considered impervious. But we warned them, and they'll make a case for why it's very expensive to pave and why they want to leave it gravel. But I'm just giving you folks a heads up that the site plan that you're going to see will probably show a large part of that area remaining as, well, not remaining as gravel, it'll be improved as gravel, but that's their preference, is to only pave a portion of it where the trucks will be.
Are they meeting all the stormwater requirements?
It will have to. They haven't submitted it yet, but they know that they have to.
We want to see that as a complete application when they come in. We don't want this piecemeal. We
Right.
want to see the engineering report with the application, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. Right.
All right. Anyone else, questions for the CEO or? Okay, Andrew, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any correction or additions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearings, petition 1419. You want to read that?
Let me read this first.
Yeah, why don't you read the procedures?
Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by chairman. B, reading the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition of the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be more than 20% of the allotted indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Want to read the application 1419, please?
A, petition 14-19 zoning text amendment, section 3.11.3, section 3.17.8, and section 6.11 regarding motor vehicle service uses. Town Plan and Zoning Commission applicant continued from May 22nd, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself for the same reasons that I've stated before on this application. Thank you.
Planner, you want to?
Well, I don't really have anything new. The hearing was kept open at after the last meeting
Why
for
did we
additional
keep it
comment.
open?
To be honest, I'm not sure why.
Go ahead.
Thought it was open because there was still you went with a consensus on the distances.
No, the doors.
Or doors.
We lost on, well, I lost on the distances, but I think I might have prevailed on the doors. The doors are no longer an issue facing the street, at least that was the straw poll, and that's why we kept it open.
Yeah.
Well,
There was a reason we kept it open.
Why did we keep it open? Because
well, maybe to give the public more opportunity to talk about the merits of allowing doors facing the street, because that was what was heard at the last meeting, and it was kept open.
Actually, I thought the
For more
reason we
public
kept it
dis-
open is because you were actually going to reapply and do it all over again because it was a significant change.
That was what last week was.
So that was the start of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It was the 100-foot buffer, am I correct?
Well, the reason we started all over again at the last meeting was because of the 100-foot buffer and the garage door issue. So that's why we started again at the last meeting. I don't know why you didn't close the hearing that night. I thought it was maybe to give the public more time to think about the impact of these changes.
okay, we'll open it up to the public for, everybody understands that we had two issues, the two issues that we've come to conclusions on those two issues. There's one was the distance requirement and the other one was the garage doors. So, Anthony, you have a question?
Well, I'm seeing that under your memo on 6.11.2, there were some changes for allowing, I think it was some of the public comment had to do with regards to like an auto zone, allowing them to go out and do replacement and putting, a headlight in or this in. And I remember the opposite, or the public the person who came and spoke said, and I'll use Modern Tire as an example, where he's not allowed to pull his vehicle out to do like a, windshield.
Part of the
But I'm,
change, that's part of the change under 611 too,
I-
per the staff amendment memo of June 4th.
Right, so it's in my report, and when the hearing is closed and the commission then finalizes the amendment, I'm going to recommend that this be in the final version. But it's not, it's not a big thing. It's not a controversial issue the way the buffer was or the garage doors was.
okay.
I think that was something, one of the reasons why we left it open, because it wasn't in there, and Bob, Mr. Menta had mentioned it, so,
Right, it was his idea originally.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And when we vetted that enough for public opinion, those changes that have come out of that, outside of the doors and distance.
Right. Yes, I think so, but again,
We're opening
that's
it
why
up
it's
again.
still here.
Open it up again tonight, and then we're going to close this hearing.
Excuse me, Mr. Planner, I have a question. I'm reading your comment here on 611.7,
No.
where it says that when Firestone was approved, that house was not a house, but it was DOT property and was a commercial property.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Since it became a house, and Firestone now is technically in violation of,
No, they're non-conforming.
well, but they would have been.
They are non-conforming. It would not have been approved
Right.
if the house was residential at that time.
So my question is now, what happens if, say, like against Mr. Menta's property, there was a house or a building there that becomes a residential portion? What would
Wait,
happen to that?
All right, I'm sorry, say that again?
What happens if, say, another automotive business, all right, that there was a building next
Being
to
a
it.
new one that wants to come in.
No, there's an
An existing one, okay.
And the property next to it becomes residential. What happens?
Okay. If the
I don't wanna
property,
create
okay, all right,
more-
let me answer that question before you then make it more complicated. Okay, because that's a good question. If there's an existing commercial zone next to an existing residential zone, in theory, that business has already provided a buffer, because you have a rule pretty much townwide in Newington that any commercial property next to a residential zone has to have a buffer area of at least 25 feet. But let's say that hypothetical business was approved before we had a buffer rule, whatever. If the owner of what's now commercial property next door comes before you and asks for a zone change to residential, and then tomorrow morning you approve it, it becomes residential, that doesn't have any impact on that doesn't have any immediate impact on the existing business next to them. They're non-conforming, they're grandfathered. Now, that would have an impact on their ability to expand in the future, but it wouldn't be a problem for them to continue operating.
So my second question that I started to ask was, now, if I'm not, now let's assume I own a business now non-conforming. I want to sell it, I'd have a problem with it. Am I correct?
No,
What would be the problem?
Because the building itself is non-conforming at that point.
okay.
That's my question. Would I have a problem selling a building that's non-conforming, that's in a non-conforming area?
Well,
Or,
right, I think if there were an appraiser here, he would tell you whether being non-conforming impacts the value of a piece of property. I think it depends on a lot of specifics unique to that particular location. Does being non-conforming reduce something's value? Probably, right, because if you buy it, you know you won't be able to expand, whereas you would if it were conforming. Yes, it probably would impact the sale price that you got for your business.
Second thing, would that prohibit me or give me a harder time if I wanted to take a business loan out on that?
Well, that would be up to the bank.
Well, I mean, I'm asking a question. If the property is non-conforming, and would that in any way, shape, or form cause a problem for that individual to try to get a loan?
Right,
That's what I'm asking.
it would depend
Because-
on the underwriting policies of that particular bank. I mean, if it's a small-town bank, used to doing business in towns, understanding what nonconformity is, and understanding that it's not something bad, it might not be, you might have to shop around a couple of banks to get that loan, but at the end of the day, if it's a good business, and there'd be no reason for the bank not to lend you the money.
I guess I'm comparing this to somebody that has an illegal apartment in their house. Okay, if they want to sell their house, like we've had several of them, that's what I'm concerned with. I'm just questioning that.
Yeah, well, an illegal apartment, sure, I could see that being a problem.
Then they would have a problem. Matter of fact, I think it was one on Wilson Avenue or something, I can't remember now, they had to come through and they had an illegal apartment and they had to take it out in order to sell the property. I'm just asking, would that same criteria apply to commercial property as well? That's all I'm
Right,
asking.
and that's a good question, and really, a banker would give you a better answer. But I think the difference between a legal non-conforming and an illegal apartment those are pretty different things.
But
And I
okay,
think a bank would treat them differently.
I don't know how we get away from not classifying them other than what they are. They're non-conform. Some of them are still gonna be non-conforming. Yeah, I don't know how we could get it so everybody conforms.
I just don't want to hurt anybody in here. That's all I'm concerned.
I don't either, but it's the nature of what we're doing here.
I think the planner actually just kind of highlighted it, legal nonconforming. I mean, it makes a little bit of a difference than nonconforming. It sounds much better.
It does.
It means that there's been changes within our zoning regulations after that building was approved for whatever reason it was approved for, and then the zoning board at whatever time has changed them and has made that particular lot non-conforming, but it's still legal.
Right, the phrase legal non-conforming is actually redundant, because non-conforming means something that was allowable at the time, but since then the regulations have changed. You'll hear people like me once in a while say legal non-conforming to emphasize the point, but it really is redundant. It's just plain illegal if it was never approved by zoning or never complied with the zoning regulations. That would be illegal, not non-conforming.
And that particular piece of property that we're talking about right now, they didn't cause that to happen. The zoning board did.
That's true.
They changed the zoning, so they had nothing to do with it at all.
That's right.
Okay, yes.
I have a question on, just some clarification on your page of this whole packet that you have, page 2, which is, the top of the page says revised May 9th, 2019. I just want to make sure that two-part question. From your memo, I don't see the changes on this page.
Right, because you'll never see changes to the thing that's, as you said, dated May 9th. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the amendment as was posted with the town clerk,
Okay.
as it was published. I'm not making any changes to the basic document.
Okay, so that brings in my second question. With some of these on this page 2, if you move forward, we may be putting more properties in nonconformity. Say, just like 611-4, no display or storage of any motor vehicle intended for sale or rent is permitted in the required front yard or in the street right-of-way.
Well, okay, let's stay with that, 611.4.
And the reason I bring that is let's use 2 rental facilities, because we don't have car dealerships in Newington. We have some, but not at this location. That all their cars are stored, some of the cars on one side of the pike at the Avis are stored in front, in the parking lot, and then on the other side of the pike going southbound, Enterprise, all their cars are in the front. So if you go and enact this, then those two properties are going to be legally non-conforming. We're going to make it worse.
Well, currently, no display, sale, rental, or storage of any motor vehicle is permitted in the front yard. So that's how it is now. That's the rule that's the law of the land today. If this amendment is approved, then sale and rental is no longer prohibited, for one thing. And the display,
I guess.
okay, okay, right now the rule is no display or sale or rental or storage of any motor vehicle is permitted in the front yard. If this change is approved, then it'll say that no display or storage is permitted in the front yard. We're deleting the prohibition on sale and rental because one of the things that this amendment will do, it will once again allow sale and rental of motor vehicles. So this change liberalizes.
But it still makes it non-conforming if you.
No, it does.
But when this goes let's say it's enacted, just for discussion, it's enacted tomorrow, this tells me it's not allowed.
No, I'm taking, it will become allowed.
Become allowed. Okay, no
Yes,
display,
right now it's not allowed.
storage.
Right now, sale and rental is prohibited. So by taking this, but we're taking that, I'm proposing we take that out of that paragraph.
It is a little confusing because you're taking display as.
Well, you're
like a
displaying
rental.
a vehicle.
Yeah, but he's interpreting it differently, so.
That there's
So I think-
is that
yeah.
not a problem with how the people who have spoken in favor or our legal counsel are looking at it the same way as I, saying that kind of throws me for a little bit of a loop. I'll read it. No display or storage of any motor vehicle intended for sale or rent is permitted in the required front yard or in the street right away. So that's what it would be tomorrow, hypothetically, if this goes into action.
Yes,
So you can't store a rental vehicle in the front of the building,
and that's the rule now.
but it's allowed. Would
No,
they do it?
no, you can't. It's prohibited.
We approved the company to do just that
No.
when they moved from O'Neill Plaza across the
No,
street.
no, we didn't. That was that was negotiated by the CEO to reduce a nonconformity. This commission never approved that. It never came before this commission. That was something that the CEO did, as I said, to reduce a nonconformity across the street.
But that's what I'm saying, a business today that has those in front of them and they operate like Enterprise today, and then tonight at 12 o'clock, the rule hypothetically goes in effect, that same business would be out of compliance.
They'll still not be allowed to. They're not allowed to now.
That's my point. They're not allowed to, but they do.
Well, if they're doing it illegally today, what's
All of them
your
have been
point?
doing it since its inception.
Well, okay, I don't doubt that there are some legacy car rental places in Newington that
But I'm saying if
have
someone
been in
wanted to come
existence
into
before
town
2008.
and open a car rental facility,
Mm-hmm.
this is prohibiting, or a facility that wants to sell cars, used, new, whatever, it's prohibiting them from even having them out in the front curb.
It'll prohibit them from being in the front yard, yes. That's the intent of this regulation. Now, if this commission feels that that's excessive, then when the hearing is closed and you go through it and you tweak or whatever, that you could agree to eliminate that if you feel that it's excessive.
I think we tweak it after we close the public hearing. We listen
I don't
to
know
the
why
comment.
you would want to tweak it. I don't want cars in the right-of-way or the front yard being displayed. I don't know what the rest of the commission feels, but that's something that's been in the regulations, and it's something that should stay there. But specifically the right-of-way, and we're talking about the Berlin Turnpike.
Yeah.
That, we're talking about into the state properties, which we have a problem with right now on a lot of properties that use the state right-of-way as part of their property, and it's really not theirs to be parking on or displaying vehicles on. Anything else, Anthony?
No, Commissioner, or Chairman.
Any other questions or concerns of the commission? Okay, if not, we'll open it up for the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application from the public, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in opposition?
I think you can, but how do you not?
Okay.
Actually, we can't do it.
Robert Amencha, 3455 Berlin Turnpike, Modern Tire.
Gotcha, okay, I got it.
We've gone back and forth on these regulations quite a bit, and one of the biggest things for me is the fact that my business has been non-conforming since 2007. So when the regulations came back, when Firestone went in, they were written in a fashion that didn't address my particular piece of property, and it left me non-conforming. So the concern that I had was, here we are, we're putting, go backwards 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is that new regulations came in and I was still a non-conforming use. So in regards to, a business and its viability and its value, conformity was important to me. I understand that if a property is validly approved and it's conforming and all of a sudden there's a zone change next to it, that becomes a non-conforming property. Well, I think that as a business person or an investor, you would take that into account when you're making your investment. Are you right next to a property that could become residential? Whereas in my particular situation, I'm right in the middle of commercial zone. So I don't have any concerns about that. But my concern was that when the regulations got reinstituted back in 2012, I was still non-conforming. So my hope is that with these new regulations that we put in, that I will once again become conforming so that I can make modifications or additions to my property. I've met with the town planner a few years ago and showed him a few different scenarios or schematics for adding onto my property and making some modifications. And at that point in time, the suggestion was to just wait until the regulations kind of were finalized. And here we are several years later, and I'm still in a holding pattern in regards to my property. So my hope is that this gets resolved and I could become a conforming use so that I could add on to my property. And there's a difference between legal conforming and, properties that aren't legally conforming. And those are different issues that they'd have to deal with. But being a property that's in the middle of a commercial zone, I would think that it should be written in a fashion that my property should be able to become conforming.
What areas, Mr. Planner, does his property deficient in becoming
Right.
conforming?
I don't know. I haven't
Well, I
run your
can
property
speak
through
to
the,
that.
through the
So
filter.
when the regulations were written in 2012, it was for limited
You make these
repairs.
changes, will your property be conforming?
If we make these changes right now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite sure what changes you guys are, I mean, the commissioners are going to all agree upon, because there've been so many different changes to the regulations. And I had one question. I have the memo that was in the packet with the changes that the town planner had proposed, but then the regulations were still the revised regulations from May 9th. So we had our last meeting a few weeks ago, and there were comments, but none of those comments were put into the regulations. I had expected that.
He explained that, he explained it.
Right. I just thought that would be too much of a moving target
Okay.
to change what I'm going to call the May 9th version, because that's what was filed with the town clerk. That was the subject of the public hearing last week. And I opted not to make any changes to that. Instead, I made them in the memo, in that two-page memo. The one change to address the issue that you had brought up.
Okay, because there were a lot of comments that were made in the last meeting that are not even in the two-page memo.
As what?
Well, one of them was in 611.3, just for consistency, it says that any entrance shouldn't be within 100 feet of school, playground, hospital, any residence. But then in 611.5, it says residential zone. So I thought for continuity, that should be residential zone. The storage is an issue that I think has to be resolved between the commissioners. There were some comments on that. The repairs that the portion that you put in that says the replacement of disposable parts such as windshield wipers and starter batteries may take place outside of the building. I still think that's kind of a little gray area. Disposable parts, are brake pads disposable parts? They wear out and they're disposable. So I think something along the lines of the replacement of minor parts that typically take 15 minutes or less to replace may take place outside the building on a limited basis. So you wouldn't want to see me with cars outside every single one of my bays every single day, replacing batteries, replacing windshield wipers. But on a limited basis, if you drove by and you saw one car outside and we were putting a battery in it, or we were installing a spare, that I think should be acceptable. But I think that wording is more succinct and kind of covers the various items that could be serviced in that period of time. And I think 15 minutes is a good time period, because you wouldn't want a car sitting out there for an extended period of time and they say, oh, we're just putting a battery in it. Well, why is it sitting there with the hood open for half the day? So I think that kind of protects you a little bit. Those are minor repairs, custom storage. In 611.6, you had mentioned the type of material that should be used on the facade of the building. I had made mention that it should state road-facing facade, because on my building, if I were to add on to my building and I were going to do something around the back of my property, would I have to put split block on the back of my property? I could understand putting it on front. It's very important, drive it, have it look nice, but on the back of the property, is it really necessary? So I thought that there should be some sort of a clarification there. And the other thing was just, on the overhead doors. If overhead doors are going to be allowed, okay, I just wanted to know, if I have 10 bays right now, I have 10 bays facing the Berlin Turnpike, can I have 15 bays facing the Berlin Turnpike? Or should it just be the 10 bays that I have, and you say, you can't increase them, but you could add on and put them around the back? Those are my comments that hopefully you take under advisement, discuss them. And the main thing, though, is my desire to become a conforming property so that I can do to my property what other conforming uses or new applications are able to do to their properties. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public on this issue, for or against?
I don't like
Okay, Mr. Planner.
And I guess we can close the hearing.
Commissioners, Anthony, when you're finished, we'll move on, okay? We get a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made, and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll close the hearing and
We're going to move it to old business.
going to move it to old business next meeting.
Well, how about if we move it to old business tonight and talk about it so that I know what you want me to come back with at the next meeting?
Okay,
Good point.
okay, so let's put that under item G, under old business. That ends the public portion of the agenda. We'll get into new business. Petition 1819, is that ready?
No, it's not.
Okay. Petition 2219, this is on the Kazarian property.
Right, they've asked for another extension of the map filing deadline. I have no objection to it.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Yeah, there's a draft motion in the packet.
Anthony, you want to read the motion into the record so we can vote on it?
Do we have to move it to old business, Mr. Chairman, first, and take it up then, or can we do it?
I think that's, we don't have a motion in the packet.
Yeah, no, I know that, but can you do it in new business, or does it have to be in old business? That was my question.
Planner?
Oh, that's a formality I've never really understood. It's just, it's your housekeeping, it's your custom, it's not a law. Yeah.
You said there's something in the packet, there's nothing in the packet. It's for the tent sale. It's for the tent sale.
Oh, it's in the packet.
Did I
It's
miss
in the
it?
packet after the memo,
Right after the letter.
after the letter from Miggs and Hegel and Friend.
All right. Petition 22-19, second extension of map filing deadline for re-subdivision of property at 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Carrion, owner applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut, contact. I move to approve petition 22-19, second extension of map filing deadline for re-subdivision of property at 179 Meadow Street, estate of Fay H. Carrion, owner applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut, contact. No conditions.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments, concerns? All in favor?
What's,
Aye.
we know the extension time frame?
90 days.
90 days, okay. Thank you.
By statute.
Motion passes. Next item, TPC discussion on window signs. Anthony?
Thank you for letting it come back up again. I mean, I remember I sent some emails to town staff and CC'd the chairman, and town staff forwarded some of those photos a couple weeks back, and I wanted to get the commissioner's opinion on discussing the excessive amount of window signage. I'm not speaking of the signage that each building might have for said tenant, but when you go around town to different businesses, this isn't specific to any location, it's just a general consensus that there are some businesses that every piece of their facade facing the street or parking lot has signage on it. And some of the buildings you can't even see in or out of. And some of it's repetitive, and wanted to get your opinion. Let's use a package store, liquor store, and the sign, one of the signs didn't even say the name of the business. I guess the name of the business was Beer and Liquor. It's on the pike. It's one that I took a photo of, and you can't even see in the building. And the sign's bolted on the wall of the facade of the building. So that made me go around town and just kind of look over the last 6-8 months, and it's there's some business in town that just have their name on top of their store. That's it. And others right next door. And these two examples, if you go down Market Square, you'll see some where the business name's above the business, and every inch of the window explains what they have inside that business. So I just wanted to get a consensus and what you think about it within regards to our regulation.
Yeah, the regulation is silent, but as I recall, Mike D'Amato, or he might had a policy, he might have even inherited it from Art, of no more than 50% of the window can be covered, blocked by signs. And if a merchant stayed within that gentleman's agreement, Mike wouldn't give him a hard time, but if they exceeded it, Mike would do whatever he could to force the person to stop, although it's not in the regulations. So if there are some in town that are violating that gentleman's agreement, then that would be appropriate for Andrew to go talk to them about.
Mr. Payne.
Yep. I think Anthony's got a valid concern. I think there's several towns that put restrictions on it for safety reasons. In case a police department gets called to that type of business, and if they can't see in and every space of the window is blocked, it could become a problem. So it's nice to hear that we have informal policy on it. Maybe we could get updated on that, and then maybe we should turn it into a formal policy with a little bit more research from some of the other towns. And I would also like to hear from the chief of police to see if he feels he has any concerns on it too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Just to clarify, I know there's laws about what signs can say, so I use my previous comment of, we can't, I'm not implying that we can regulate what the sign says. I'm using that purely as an example, that you have one sign above a business, and then there's verbiage all over the rest of the building. Now, there's some business in town that do put stuff in the glass, and you can see where it's a portion of one window, and it's a picture of something. But like this, I personally feel that the signage in town is getting a little out of control, again, even though we've combated the temporary sign, which is nice. But, I don't know if I just stand out here on an island or, I don't know what everyone else thinks of how the town signage looks. We regulate for sale signs, we regulate for lease signage, and those can get pretty big. I've seen banners in town, and we've combated that, and, I don't know.
Mr. Fox.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know. I'm not so sure that we can actually regulate what a store owner can put in his or her window. That's what bothers me. I mean, not necessarily the freedom of speech. We can't tell them what to say. Smeared up vodka, $5.99 a bottle or whatever. But I don't know if we can. I think that's what we need to do the research on. I don't know. I don't really know if we want to either, but we can go into that.
No, and I agree with you, and I like the feedback. I think it's warranted. I think, but we do regulate size of temporary signage and size of for lease that go in windows that are vacant, and it's just something to think about.
Steve.
I hear your concern, but I don't know how you could regulate it, and I guess I'm struggling with signage or display. And what is it? So if a window is set back a little bit and there's a nice display, that's okay. But if it's right on the window, it's not okay. And even if we say, all right, we don't want stuff on the window, if it's now set back 2 inches from the window, it's not on the window. I think it's a practice of this board or commission not to go after signs on the interior of the window. I don't know how you would regulate that. I have no idea how you could possibly do it.
I think you could, because there are towns that do. This town just has chosen not to. But I would ask you to first decide among yourselves philosophically whether you want to, and then the staff could come back with a regulation that does it, and then you could debate that regulation. But first, let me know whether it's something that you
Let me
want.
just finish, and then, and I guess I'll use an example, and I think that our ZO does his best, but there's a 12-page report in this month, just basically on the exterior signs, with a few other things mixed in, but it's mostly exterior signage. So now we're probably gonna go up to a 30, his full-time job is gonna be nothing but signage.
And he would first have to document who currently has signs, because they would be grandfathered. They would be legal non-conforming. So he'd have to go around and first document who currently is doing it, so that if someone new starts doing it, he can make that person stop. But he would have to let the ones who have always been doing it continue to do it.
Wait a minute, you just told us that you have a policy that you're not, the zoning enforcement officer is not allowing more than 50% of the window space taken up.
Right.
That's your unwritten policy that you're enforcing today.
Right.
So,
So if we come up with a regulation that prohibits signage in the windows, people who currently have signs
I
will
don't-
be able to keep it because there's no rule against it
I
at
don't
the
think,
moment.
I don't think anybody wants to prohibit it totally. At least I don't want to prohibit it totally. I think that it's okay to have some signage in the windows, but for safety reasons, I think near the entranceways possibly, I would imagine that the police department would like to have those opened up. And that's why some of the other towns have put in some regulations in there on where they can be and how much space can be taken up.
And I bring up, right in the report today, there's one. Package store, it's 2431 package store, advertisement signs on exterior walls.
Oh, on the wall. They've exceeded their wall.
But what I'm getting is you're starting to see a lot more of that. Now, I do agree with Commissioner Woods about the windows, and regulating that is probably very, very difficult. But these are they get the sign approval, and then it starts to just migrate into something bigger over time because there is no regulation. Like a new business on Market Square came in for signage, and then there was nothing on the window, and then they get the approval here, they put the sign above the window, and then mysteriously all the windows are now signage. Decals attached to the window. I get like driving by, say, a carpet store and seeing their display that is on a rack inside the store. I totally agree with that. But we have violations of signs upon signs upon signs, some actual signage. It's not just A-frame. We corrected that, and I've seen 12 pages of A-frame sign violations because no one knows about the A-frame sign regulations that we spent 2 years coming up. So it's a...
First thing
It's
that we
the
should do
appearance.
is we should get a report from the police department. We should get some information from the police department if they have concerns about the safety portion, number one. Number two, if we're going to look at this, it should be we should maybe cement the requirement of the 50% into a regulation, not go beyond that. Commissioner
Mr.
Sobieski.
Chairman, I seem to remember at one of the CROG meetings, there was a Supreme Court ruling, Gilbert versus Arizona, about signage. You might want to check into that.
Oh, yeah, right, sure. That sent shockwaves through this industry a couple of years ago when that happened. And that's why we now, and you guys get it, we talk about how you can't regulate content. You can't regulate what the sign says. You can regulate how big it is, where it is, but you can't regulate what the sign says. And that's what Gilbert was all about.
And I've said that from the beginning. I'm not asking what it says, because we've given signs that basically tell everybody what they're selling in their store. Beer and liquor. I thought that was the name of the business, but it isn't. So, also I'd ask that staff look into local towns around us that may have, or where you know of, that rebuke my question or give merit to it to think more about. That's all.
Commissioner Woods.
I'm just trying to hash this through, and I know there's an establishment in the center of town that loads its windows up with signage, except the windows are probably 8 feet off the ground. So there is no interference with looking in. So are we going to try to regulate that too? It becomes very difficult. And I think if it's not on a window and it's on the side of the building, that's signage. That we regulate. It's already. If it's outside, it's ours. Even if it's outside of the window, it's regulated. But if it's on the inside of the window, I think we need to be careful.
Is that the consensus?
Yeah,
Fox?
I agree with Commissioner Woods. I think it was
Sobieski?
Steve that said
I
that,
agree with Commissioner Woods
With
also.
Mr. Payne?
I think that it would be important, since there's an unwritten policy now, that for that unwritten policy to continue, I believe it should be in our book.
Mr. Braverman?
I would say that you need to have some transparency through a window to be able to see instead of covering the entire window, that you have to have some level of transparency.
Look behind you.
Bus wrap or,
But this is not facing the street.
I don't disagree with any fellow commissioners. I like the discussion. Finally, we're having a pretty normal discussion about issues. And if it's, as I've said, I mean, transparent, I didn't even think of that. Like bus wrap, you can still see in the bus, but there's businesses here, you can't even see. If the door opens, you can see in. If it closes, you can't see anything, which I don't even know if you can regulate.
Let's
So,
start with the police
you know.
department and get a report back to this commission as to what if they have concerns, and then we'll revisit it again,
That works for me.
okay?
Yes.
Next item, Plan of Conservation Development Update.
What happened? He broke it, didn't he?
Oh, well, actually, I have nothing to report on that item.
Okay. Newington Ridge update.
Nothing new to report.
Fireworks application.
Yeah, he's here.
State your name and address for the record, and it's
Joshua Nielsen, 59 East Street, Vernon, Connecticut, State Manager, Phantom Fireworks. First of all, I'd like to thank you all very much for adding me onto the agenda for this evening. So our plan for this season is to erect a 20 by 30 tent at 3164 Berlin Turnpike in the Newington Commons in the area of the shopping center, which I believe you have a site plan showing near the Staples portion of the shopping center. There would also be an 8 by 20 storage container placed on site. The storage is containers used for the overnight hours to safely secure the merchandise.
This is in the Walmart shopping center,
Correct.
am I correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Were you on the Berlin Turnpike last year? And if you were, where were you?
We were not.
Okay, thank you.
You have a plan, where's the plan?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, stapled to the application, like this.
This? Exhibit A? It was in the packet. It was in the envelope.
It was in the folder, the folder.
The folder, excuse me.
Vanilla folder left on the table.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask another question?
Sure, go ahead.
Are you planning any signage?
Well, now that is a great question after hearing your signage conversation. So we do typically put signage on the tent. We do not typically put signage by the road unless it is allowed by an ordinance. If it is not allowed, we do not. We typically do put signage on the tent, on the top, and on the sides. And if there's any permits required for that, of course, would absolutely get those. And any other signage that is allowed, we would pursue that during the correct methods.
And when are you gonna start this?
So our sale dates would be from June 26th through July 6th.
Okay. Our requirements are there are no signage other than what we allow on the tent.
I'm sorry?
The only signage that we would require, that we would allow you to do is on the tent. We
Okay.
don't, you can't put signage out near the road or any freestanding signs or anything else, or banners or flags or anything.
Okay.
Any questions from the commissioners? The planner?
This just came in yesterday, so I did not have a chance to let either police or fire look at it, but doesn't look like it's going to be a problem where it's proposed.
Mr. Payne? Anything?
No.
Okay. This is not a public hearing, this is just do you want to move this, move it to?
I suggest we move this to old business and act on it tonight.
Sure, good.
Going to make that item C under old business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one more, the auto regulations, is the next item on discussion, open it up for discussion.
I'm going to go recuse myself, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, you want to proceed with discussion on the auto regulations as to? What we're going to do is have the planner, you have to give him some indication as to what you want him to take from the memo and put into the motion, into the regulation, so that we vote on it as a package, right? Is that correct?
Right. Is there anything in the, what I'll call the May 9 version that the commission doesn't want? And I'm assuming that the commission is okay with me adding the windshield wipers and battery regulation. I heard Mr. Menta's comments. I would prefer to leave it simple, just leave it at where I said, for example, batteries and windshield wiper blades, rather than get into like a 15-minute, because that just gets kind of excessive. I think if the CEO sees someone doing anything more in his judgment substantial than windshield wiper blades and batteries, he'll speak to that merchant. Brake pads, that makes me nervous, because now I see somebody with a toolkit by the side of the road doing work. I think as a rule of thumb, I'm thinking out loud here, anything that doesn't require tools to do, I know batteries kind of require tools to change, but a windshield wiper blade doesn't require tools. Changing a battery doesn't really require tools. So those kinds of things I think would be fine, and I think the CEO would assume that they fall under the intent of this change.
I'm actually, well, I'm happy with it, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think this is fine, the way that you have it, and if it doesn't work, then we can come back and retake a look at it. But I think it does give some flexibility. I like the first part of it, replacement of disposable parts. And again, I think the intent here is that we're not looking to have motors pulled or cars completely rebuilt outside, but something's going to take 15, 20 minutes, that whether it be a battery, a light bulb, or change a tire, this covers that. And I think that was what we were trying to do. And I think it makes some sense that Mr. Armenta brought that up, because I think a lot of businesses do. And the auto parts stores now advertise it, that, come buy a battery, we install it for free. So I don't think they do a lot of it, but Mr. Armenta probably knows better than I do, but I think they do it. The other thing in 611.7, the overhead service doors shall not be permitted facing a residential zone. I'd still like to see that not in there, the facing a residential zone, and that we control that through buffering, with a landscape buffer, or.
I think that's the your problem with that. I think that's the crux of that whole regulation is the facing the residence zone, and most of our problems with this auto regulation is because of the problems of some residents being close to these operations, and the overhead doors, they have them open, and then you get the noise and the sight line and everything else. As far as opening, the doors open up or facing the street, I don't see that as a problem, and I would I think we should change, we should change that as the consensus of the commission was to change it. But as far as letting the residents, keeping it to the resident zone, I think that's the problem is with that we've had in the past. And I don't see how it would affect all of the businesses. Do you see it as a problem?
Well, it wouldn't affect existing businesses, but there might be some that have been there for 20 years, 30 years, that are right next to a residential zone. And if they wanted to add a roll-up window, a roll-up door on the side of the wall that faces the residential zone, they'd have to come in for a special permit. They'd have to satisfy the 25-foot buffer area regulation. And then even at that, if you still felt that it wasn't sufficiently protecting the residential neighborhood, you could still deny it. So I think the special permit aspect of everything in here gives you a lot of ability to protect residential neighborhoods. So I don't think therefore I don't think you need to specifically allow or disallow overhead doors, because you're going to have that opportunity to approve or deny them on a case-by-case basis.
Which makes, again, I guess my point, that because it is a special exception, right, we will have that ability. If it is facing a residential, we can do whatever. It might be that they can't face that. The doors can't face the residential. Or if there's enough room, it could be done with fencing and a buffer. But we do it on a case-by-case. Instead of, if this goes in there facing a residential zone, then it doesn't matter. It's the reg, and we can't change it, correct? We can't allow an exception. So if someone came in, if this change was made in 611.7, this will not allow any doors facing a residential zone.
No, it's the opposite. This by taking this rule out, you're
No.
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 Well, again, the way this is written, overhead service doors shall not be permitted facing a residential zone. Because you got a line.
Oh, you're looking at my memo. Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm in favor of that language. I don't know if it's up to the commission.
Right, that's what Attorney Hollister had requested, that it be revised. Okay, I was looking at the draft and you're looking at my memo. I'm sorry, okay.
I mean, we're giving them the opportunity right now, they can't even have the doors facing the street. We're saying we're going to allow them to be able to put the doors facing the street. But now you're saying you want to go a step further and allow them to even face a residence zone.
Well, I'm not really saying that. What I'm saying is that the commission should look at it case by case. So more than likely, if it was in a residential zone, we might not want that. But it could be, and again, one of these unique situations where it's facing a residential zone, but it could be 1,000 feet away, 500 feet away.
Right, or a different grade,
Yeah.
different
and
elevation.
We don't allow it.
Right.
So we take any flexibility that we have in actually strengthening, I think, the regulation and getting a better buffer in, a fence, or like the planner said, just the grades could allow it. You might not even see it.
But the amendment as drafted would liberalize the placement of garage doors.
Correct.
They could go
Yes.
anywhere, subject to your approval.
No, this says they can't be facing.
Well, no, that's what I said. The amendment as drafted, as from May 9th.
Oh, the May 9th one, maybe.
Right, that's what I'm saying, as drafted, would liberalize garage doors anywhere with your approval. What Attorney Hollister has requested is that it be kind of in between, open up half of it. Continue to disallow them facing the street. I mean, allow them to face the street, so that's new, but but now prohibit them from facing a residential zone.
So maybe so the only reason
Okay,
6.11.
you're looking at
Yeah.
you're looking at the language that Hollister asked them to be put into the regulation. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah,
Well,
in my memo,
Yeah.
right.
It's in the
Yeah,
planner's
well,
memo.
that's not his language, that's Hollister's language.
That's the computer.
So, the way it's written in the May 9th memo, I'm fine.
So you're saying, let's not make the change, just leave the regulation as written?
No, it's all straight, 6.11.7 goes away.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, okay.
I thought the planner was trying to introduce a new 6.11.7 in the memo that we have today is dated June 4th.
Okay, but I was just presenting Attorney Hollister's.
I see that now.
Okay. I'm not recommending it, I'm just
I
presenting.
understand.
Okay.
Okay, so it doesn't
Anything
sound
else?
like then there are any changes to the May 9 basic version other than the windshield wiper blade change. Okay, all right, then that's what I will have for you. All of it clean without all the strikeouts and underlines.
And I
For
think
you
this
at the
does a
next
pretty
meeting.
good job of cleaning up that regulation.
As long as everything comes, all of them are under special exception, all of auto regulation, all of them that have to come in are under special.
And as I mentioned at the previous meeting, eliminating the 1 acre requirement, that is going to open up a lot of opportunities for auto-related businesses in Newington that haven't been able to. It's been a while since I've gotten those calls because people got the message. But a lot of people who wanted to open up a business and had a building in mind, I had to tell them, sorry, that building is not on a 1 acre lot. Or people who wanted to go into a building, a multi-tenant building, that has to be 4 acres. So that's going away under this change.
And as far as the trying to make everybody into conformity, it's not going to happen. And I don't know what modern tires, if they're going to be in conformity or not, because I'm not privy to all the different things that are going on with that specific piece of property. I don't know if it is or not.
I think this does a pretty good job of getting
I
there.
mean, if we're opening up to allow them to have garage doors. Would we consider letting them add another 20 bays to the front? I don't know. That's something that they'd have to bring it in. Any other questions, Mr. Claffey?
Question on your May 9th memo, if we have a definition of limited repairs.
Yeah, the state definition, the statutory definition.
Do you know that off the top of your head? Because I don't. Like,
No, off
GS.
off the top of my head, no, but it's,
Is that something like the oil change or not oil change, scratch that.
right.
The windshield wiper, battery.
not even, those don't even rise to the level of meeting a limited repair or license.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so you know what to do for the next
Yes.
meeting. See. Okay. That takes care of new business. We're
That's what I
into
thought.
old business. We have any old business? Yeah.
The fireworks.
Okay.
Under old business, we have the transit.
No, under old business, we have the fireworks.
That's for scheduling.
For scheduling,
Okay.
yes.
Under old business, we have the we have a motion? Is there a motion?
Yeah, it was in the folder, the manila folder.
I gotta find it. Oh. Yeah. You want any conditions added to this? You had mentioned, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
no
add the signage.
no exterior signs except on.
No
tenant.
freestanding signage.
No standing exterior signs. Okay.
Go ahead.
Petition 24-19, firework tent sales, section 3.23.1.b at 3164 Berlin Turnpike. Phantom Fireworks, Eastern Region LLC, applicant Newington VF LLC, owner Rick Seary, 201 Seymour Street, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Contact: I move to approve petition 24-19, firework tent sales, section 3.23.1.b at 3164 Berlin Turnpike. Phantom Fireworks, Eastern Region LLC, applicant Newington VF LLC, owner Rick Seary, 201 Seymour Street, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Contact: one condition, no freestanding exterior signage.
Second.
Motion made second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're all set. Just make sure you take it down when you said you were going to take it down.
Thank you very much.
That takes care of that. Petitions for scheduling. Petition A, you want to read that into, just to let us, the plan?
Oh, okay, petition 21-19, zoning text amendment, section 3.5.2 and 3.16.3, to allow non-residential parking in a residential zone. Paul F. and Frank S. Johngrave applicant. Attorney Lawrence Shipman, 433 South Main Street, number 319, West Hartford, Connecticut. Contact. This started as a zoning complaint. The neighbor complained. This is a factor that's been there for, I think I've been told since World War II, but certainly for several decades. It's in an industrial zone. It's a little one-lot industrial zone, but the owners of the property bought the vacant lot to the east some time ago, and they now want to use it for parking. The problem is it's in a residential zone. You can't have parking in a residential zone. So the zoning enforcement officer and I met with the applicant's attorney a couple of times to try to brainstorm a way for them to, well, first a way to amend the regulations so that they could continue to park there. And we kind of didn't really talk about whether it's a good thing or not. The commission will make that decision after the public hearing. But this text amendment, as developed by Attorney Shipman, it, in a very limited way, would enable the Frazel Tool Company to have parking on their property in the residential zone with a buffer between what will be the parking lot and the neighbor to the east. It would only be for a residential zone that abuts an industrial zone, so it's pretty tightly crafted to not open up the doors to, let's say, some business in a PD zone who buys the vacant lot, the house next door, so that he could expand his parking also. This would only be for industrial parcels that are adjacent to a residential zone. So I do have some thoughts on it, but I'll save my thoughts for the public hearing. And I recommend that the hearing be scheduled for July 10th. And July 10th because we needed to send it to CROG at least 30 days before the hearing. That's why we can't do it at your next meeting.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there be a site plan as part of this text amendment?
No, but I think, no, the answer is no. And because in Connecticut, zone changes cannot be conditional, and I'll give you the party line here. And even if you approve, I'm sorry, it's not a zone change, it's a text amendment. Well, it's a text amendment. I guess you could ask the applicants to illustrate what it would look like if the amendment were approved. It wouldn't be binding, though. It wouldn't be binding, but if they show you one thing, get the text amendment, and then come back with something different, I think they would have some trouble.
Is there a requirement for a site plan?
Not for a text amendment.
We're going to make a text amendment, allow them to do this, and not know what it's going to look like when it's done, what the buffer's going to look like, where the parking is it going to be striped, is it going to be paved, we're not going to know anything about it, we're just going to give them carte blanche to go and use this residential piece of property as parking. I'm in favor of allowing them to use it as parking, but I want to see what they're doing. I want to see the buffer, because this is right next door to a residence. And this come about because of complaint from that residence. I mean, they're parking right up against the residential zone, right up against her property line. And that's why I want to see the 25-foot buffer. I want to see his cars parked close to the building, not up to the 25 feet. I want to see what it's going to look like. I'm in favor of him being able to use that on a limited basis for parking, but not to the detriment of the resident that complained.
Mr. Chairman?
And I think it's imperative that we get the site plan as part of the application so we know exactly what we're getting. The size of the trees, I want to see the buffer, I want to see where they're going, if we're going to require maybe a berm there. It's too invasive on this property owner because it's right there. I'm familiar with the piece of property. It's right on the corner of Church and Foster. Mr. Payne.
Mr. Chairman, I think this would be a good example where the applicant can file a text amendment, but he should also file in conjunction an application to show us what he's planning on doing besides the text amendment. So he'd have two applications in front of us, one for the text and one showing his site plan with a full site plan and how it would, how the text would apply to his property.
That was PB.
Any other, Mr. Woods, you kind of
Well, yeah,
weigh in on that?
I'm going along Commissioner Payne's comments. I'm assuming that the parking is going to tie into 14, which is the industrial zone.
That's
So-
my understanding.
so- Yeah, so I think then we would need to get a site plan, because there is overlap. And I think you're right, Mr. Chairman, that we need to see what it's going to look like, because there are residential properties that need protection.
Are they gonna be removing the property line, asking those to be combined?
We gotta be careful not to get too much into this.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
but-
We'll do, and applicants will talk about that.
But I want, if we're going to require him to, I want to require him to do more
Sure.
than just this
Okay.
as part
I
of
will
his
tell him.
application.
Yep, I will tell him.
At least
He's got a month to prepare it, so there's plenty of time.
A rendering, right? At least,
Right.
even if it's in a full site plan right away, a rendering of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then you
Right.
can move into a plan.
And also, has there been contact with the property owner?
Yes,
She's aware of this?
yes.
Have you sent her any information as to what they're asking for?
Yes, we've spoken on the phone a couple of times since the application came in, so she knows what they're, and she is following this, and she will definitely be at the hearing.
Okay, good. Okay, and they're going to put up a sign?
Well, no, because it's a text amendment that theoretically applies anywhere in Newington where we're an
Okay,
industrial
you're right,
zone.
right.
So, right, exactly. But we'll make sure that she's aware of when the hearing is.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
are we gonna ask him to file an application too for, besides the text amendment, if we're asking him for a site plan, he should file an application for what he's doing, and if he files an application, then he would have a possible sign there, correct?
No, not for
No,
site plan.
That's only for public hearing.
Right. But I like Commissioner Woods, what he said a few minutes ago about having the applicant submit a rendering of what this would look like if it gets approved. Because if we ask him to supply or apply for site plan approval, he's going to have it engineered, he's going to have to show the drainage, the detention basin, everything to the literally hundredth of a foot. And then if the amendment ends up being denied, he's spent all that money on a engineered site plan that was wasted. So I think a very detailed rendering is a perfectly reasonable thing to.
I believe he's working with Bon Giovanni
Yes,
on this. So
correct.
That's something that can be done. I mean, we don't want him to do, design the Taj Mahal here. Just give us something that we know that what the buffer's going to be
Right, understood.
and the location of the parking.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, that's reasonable.
all right.
Okay, all right, I will contact, or communicate that to him.
Okay, the next petition for scheduling is 2319, the TVD.
Right, now, Andrew Becker has been designated by the town council to be the contact. And he has asked that the hearing be scheduled for July 10th because he's on vacation June 26th. And I know that it was his interest to get the hearing started as soon as reasonable so that a decision can be made in a timely manner. So I know he's requested that the hearing be scheduled for July 10th.
Does this have to go to CROG?
No, because it doesn't
Why?
affect, the CROG referrals only happen if it affects property within 50 or 500 feet of a town line. This is a text amendment that doesn't, we know that it's for Cedar Street, but it's not something that requires CROG referral. I could send it to CROG if you'd like.
I'm surprised, but no
Yeah.
problem if
In
it
fact,
doesn't have required.
I started to fill
We
the
send-
referral form, and
We
then I
send
got.
everything else to CROG,
Well, it seems like we do, but we don't. There have been a few things that we haven't had to, because it's really only things that affect within 500 feet. Yeah, I started to fill out the CROG referral, and then I got to the spot where I realized, wait a minute, this isn't a map change, it's a text amendment that isn't really, I mean, it's site-specific, but, well, in any event, the answer is no, but we could certainly send it to CROG if you'd like, for them to take a look at.
On the last TOD area we did, the two text amendments way back when, the two sites, West Hill and,
Mhm.
how long did we give when all this, like, seems this is here, now we have to act on it?
Right.
It seems like it's a very short window for this, but we had a very long window for the other two TOD overlay districts.
Well, I think in both cases, the hearing began in a timely manner. You kept it open for quite a while, for a long time, as far as the Newington Junction. The Cedar Street one, I don't remember how long that stayed open, but they were open pretty much as soon as they could be. But it's your discretion.
Mr. Payne?
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that we had proper notification out to the public as much as possible, and I would still like to have the abutters, possibly the list that was used for Maple Hill Avenue, which I think was about 300 and something names, where notification should go out to those people. And then we should try to put this on NCTV and whatever else we can do to make sure that we have the public here.
Yep.
Any other, Mr. Fox, anything on this? Mr. Sobieski? Steve?
No, I'm good.
Yes.
I
You could
have,
ask.
I don't know what the town's position as far as how fast they want to move it. I'm assuming this time is of the essence, but I'm concerned that we're doing this in July on the week after where everybody is on vacation. And I don't want to push this through without public input. I'm getting feedback already that there's people that are in opposition to this and they don't even know what it's about. So I want a fair hearing for the public to know what is going on. And I'm concerned about the middle of the summer here, or this one meeting. I want to move it and do what's right for the town. I want to, see, have us vet this vet this whole 800-page regulation. But I also want the town people to know what that they have the opportunity to weigh in on it. So I'm concerned about if we get into this on July, it's not going to happen, that meeting, we're not going to act on it. So as much as we could get out to the public to have public input, I think is important. You're aware of the list that Dominic is talking about?
Yeah.
Because of the, you're aware of it, Mr. Brecker?
It was used for the Alumni Road.
Yes. Can we get something out to them and as part of this process? I want to move this along, but I want to do it where when we're finished, we're not getting, well, I didn't even know about it, and you're putting in a train station, and I'm against it, and we got everybody on Maple Hill doesn't want it, or Bow Farms, or whatever. Mr. Payne?
Yeah, and that list, I think, had Maple Hill, and then it had Old Farms on there too, I believe. It was a good list. And then, so I'm wondering, Mr. Chairman, since you said that somebody was going to be out of town in July, the second meeting in
I'll be
July.
out of town July 10th.
Maybe we should schedule this for the first meeting in August. That gives us enough time. First of all, the commissioners, we have some reading to do and understanding this document, which is quite long. And then it also gives us enough time to promote this on NCTV and any other ways we can and get the letters out. So that would be my recommendation, having this the first meeting in August.
I think we have to bring it in as soon as possible and start the process. We could always not close it, Dominic, and let it run. We don't have to, we're not going to hear it that night and close it. We could hear it that night, keep the thing open, have another public hearing at the end of the month. And if we have to go into August, if we get in opposition, if we're getting a big public outcry or public input, we'll keep it open until the public is satisfied with what we're doing. And because that gives us a month for us to digest and come up with some information, and we could start it'll give us that meeting in July to start, and then the other meeting in July, and maybe at the end, in August or the end of August, we'll be finished with it. I don't know. Mr. Fox?
I don't know if we'll even be finished with it by the end of August, because, I agree. Should get this started already, but with, I don't doubt that there'll be a stretching out of public participation, because as we said, you got vacation coming, and
Yeah, I just
And
don't want to do
people-
it,
people-
I just don't
it-
want to do it in July and then think that that's going to be one meeting and we're
No.
going to close it, and it's just not going to, can't happen like that.
definitely will not be the case.
Mr. Woods?
Yeah, it's been, I'm not going to repeat it. I'm good.
Okay. Stan, you all set?
Yes.
Okay.
So what date?
We're going to do it for the July.
July 10th. Okay.
July 10th,
July
we'll start the process. We'll start it and.
keep it
we'll
open
get the-
if needed.
We'll get Mr. Brecker to give us the dog and pony show on it, and we can at least start there. And then have the public weigh in. And then we'll keep it open, and we'll have them come back again, and then we'll let the public weigh in. That'll bring in at least 2 meetings in July. And if we have to, we'll see what the public reaction is. I don't know what they're going to come in. We might have everybody say it's the greatest thing since, who knows?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like, to the planner, I think we had Vincent Drive area in there also.
The what?
No, for the letters going out. I just was looking at this now. I think we had Vincent Drive, and I forgot the other.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, so we had that whole area. I think that's what Commissioner Payne's
We'll use that
referring
same
to.
list.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. I just,
I think if we do that, that would cover most of the people that are
Concerned about
have
Cedar Street.
concerns, that I've heard concerns, might have concerns with this.
Right.
Okay, so we're
Okay,
good.
good, thank you.
Town planners report.
I don't, it's been a couple weeks since I did it. I don't think I had a report.
emailed.
Did I?
Sent it to her.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Give me a second here. Okay, but not in the agenda packet. Okay.
You emailed it to us yesterday.
Yeah.
You work for the town of Newington.
Oh, that report. Okay. That's one I do for the manager, and then I send it to you also. That one. Okay.
Yeah, that's the town planners report. On that report, you had an item that said you had a discussion with an attorney from the temple. Or the
Yes.
Hindu temple.
Right.
Can you enlighten us just?
Yes. Well, I don't think it comes as any.
Is it in relationship to the house?
Yes. I don't think it comes as any surprise to you folks that the congregation doesn't understand why they have to put a fence around a house in a residential zone. And I explained to them, well, because it started out as a special permit application and it evolved into something different, but at the end, that was what the commission wanted. And so I met with their attorney to explain to him so that he could explain to his clients why.
Are we
why
going
it
to get
was-
the fence?
I
You
don't know.
Anything else on the report? You all got the report. Okay. Communications, any communications?
No,
Stanley?
when I get them from CROG, I email them out to everybody.
Okay. Public participation?
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. Sitting here listening to your discussion about the signs in the windows. Good luck, gentlemen. You can't, I don't mean you. It seems that the town can't follow our own regulations. Everywhere I go, I'm seeing signs in the rights of way. I'm seeing signs.
Okay, Rose.
Here, there, and everywhere, so I feel badly for the businesses. I understand your concerns. It's going to be difficult to come up with a regulation that's going to be fair to everyone, and you might get some feedback from the businesses as well. I don't know whether this is appropriate to bring up here or not. And I spoke with Mr. Minor last night about the expansion to the Victory Gardens. Is that something that,
It will ultimately come before you. Yeah, the VA is looking to work with their housing developer to remodel 3 of those 4 houses behind the new Victory Gardens as supportive housing for veterans, some 30 or so units, and they will be coming before you for site plan approval, just like they did for the first one,
The old
5 or
nursing.
6 years ago.
It's the old nursing residence.
Yeah,
Yes,
those are
right.
former doctors and nurses
Yes,
residents.
right.
and there's going to be a public information hearing on June 25th. I believe it's at 2:15, and it's at the VA campus in the Directors Conference Room, Building 1, Room 531, 555 Willard Avenue. I know there was a lot of controversy over Victory Gardens when it first came in, and I think it's important for the people to be informed as to what their plans are, so I just thought I would mention it. Another issue that has come before you many times is the no left-hand turn signs at McDonald's. And I remember an assistant attorney general coming to here to complain about the signage and so forth and so on, and he was assured that when they came in, that it would, for their renovation or whatever, remodeling, that it would be taken care of. I get so tired of looking at Facebook and all the complaints about the left-hand turn and this and that. Well, from what I understand, communication with Gregory Palmer from the DOT, after many months, he and I going back and forth, some signs have been installed. But as per usual, people aren't paying attention to them anyway. But in any case, look forward to listening to all the controversy. I'm sure that's going to come back and forth across this table over the next few months, and thank you for everything that you do.
Anyone else from the public?
Sorry.
Commissioner comments, remarks, Commissioner Claffey.
I have a question, if we can start to maybe put on thinking caps, maybe Mr. Planner, maybe not for the next meeting, but for the meeting after, a discussion on the amount of some of these parking lots in town that are becoming storage facilities for businesses' product that has taken up hundreds of parking spaces. And when this is done at different businesses all around, some are storage containers that are sitting in parking spaces, from little businesses to big businesses. There's no delineation between the two. Some of them are taking up hundreds of spots. So I think it needs to be further discussed when the businesses come before us to do a site plan or a modification to an existing tenant. So maybe not for next meeting, maybe for August 2nd, maybe even, but it needs to be addressed.
I'll have a memo for that, maybe at the August meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it for me.
One of the most blatant violators is Lowe's. It's taken up hundreds of parking places with displays of merchandise in their parking areas. Maybe it's okay because they have an abundance of parking, but some of the locations that they have them might not be okay. Particularly the one that's closest to Chick-fil-A one. I mean, using up a great portion of the parking in that area. They're one of the biggest violators.
I mean, in that discussion, that used to be all the way to the left of the Lowe's, way off to the left, to the back left. And now it seems all that is vacant. It's migrated closer to Berlin Turnpike. That's just one, but there's, as I looked at other businesses,
Yeah,
it's
there's still a
purely
lot.
not the only.
Okay, just put it on for the August.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Payne?
Yes, on the CROG, did our planner review, there's like 4 or 5 of these things that are abutting Newington that are coming in. Have you reviewed them to
Yes, the ones that abut Newington, if it's like a change to something really trivial, I don't. But if it's something that I think would be of concern to the commission, I'll ask that planner for a copy of the amendment. And sometimes I'll pass them along to the chairman. They usually don't really have any impact on Newington, but if there are any that you've seen that you think I should have brought to your attention, let me know, and I'll recalibrate my eyes when I look at.
I know Cromwell's talking about billboards. Berlin is talking about affordable housing on the turnpike. I don't know, I haven't had a chance to read through them all, but there was like more, it was unusual. There was about 4 or 5 that abut Newington.
Right, the affordable housing one, I did ask my colleague over there for a copy of their amendment. It's interesting what they're, I'll share that with you. It's interesting what they want to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then the only other comment was to answer Rose. I think that the only way to solve the problem over there is for the DOT to install on the center line. They make these plastic safety sticks that install into the center line, and they stand about 2 feet up, and they space them every 2 feet. And they put a line of those there, and if a truck hits it, they don't break, and you can still plow. And I think that's the only way that you're going to stop those people from entering in the wrong way. And so I just wanted to get that on the record.
Mr. Fox?
I have to agree, Dominic. When they first came in for the new McDonald's, when they took over the donut shop next door, that was one thing that we brought up a number of times during the hearings. I don't know if you were on the commission at that time, Dominic. And I agree, we suggested that, but I'll tell you what, after what I've seen over there, that might not even stop. That might not even stop them. But got to try something. Nothing's working right now.
Right. Anyone else? Any other commissioner comments? The motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Them up there, Mike.